There's a difference between wisdom and intelligence. You could be extremely intelligent, but actually at the exact same time, you might not be very wise. Let me show you what I mean. How many of you have ever seen one of those shows when animals attack? Anybody? Okay, I'm not gonna lie, when one of those shows comes on, I'm locked in. Love those things. And I was watching one of those recently, and what I saw was a great example of intelligence that was lacking wisdom. Here's what was happening. There was a scientist who had done ample research, according to him, and after his ample research, he decided that he would like to feed great white sharks by hand. Maybe you see where this is going. So what happened was he's sitting on the back of this boat, he's got his feet in the water, and just so none of us forget, the sharks are in said water. And then he lures this great white to the surface while his feet are in the water, and he proceeds to feed this thing by hand. So let's just stop for a second. I am sure that this guy's really smart. He probably has multiple degrees. But is this wise? No, the answer is no, it's not. It is a great white shark. You don't feed an apex predator by hand. Like, this thing could probably use this guy's arm as a toothpick if it wanted to. Now, I'm gonna be honest here, at the risk of me sounding like a jerk, and this doesn't look good on me, but when I see that kind of foolishness, I'm kind of rooting for the animal. Like, I just am. I'm pulling for the shark. Bro, you're gonna get what's coming to you. Well, I can't believe the shark bit me after all of my research. Really? You can't believe the 2,000-pound shark that has triangle daggers for teeth. You can't believe that thing bit you when you were feeding it by hand. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to see how it played out because one of my kids walked into the room and I didn't want them to see Jaws doing his thing, and then they're terrified to ever swim in the ocean again. There's a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Somebody could have their PhD, but if they don't have any wisdom, then they're just an educated fool. I mean, despite popular opinion, if you can take intelligence and couple it with wisdom, that's a pretty awesome thing. Now you're onto something. But despite popular opinion, wisdom is not automatically attached to age. It's not. I mean, one of the assumptions that we make is that as a person gets older, they automatically become wise. Now, experience and time can certainly help produce wisdom, but it's not a guaranteed. There are wise teenagers and there are foolish people north of the age of 50, and you've probably met both before. Just because you have age doesn't automatically mean that you're wise, and just because you're young doesn't automatically mean you're foolish. Wisdom is not biased towards intelligence or age. Wisdom is biased towards pursuit. Like, what I mean is, those people that seek it out, those who value it, they're the ones that can find it. And wisdom's a great thing. I think we would all agree on that. It's a good thing, and it's very much needed in the world today. I don't need to describe to you or explain why we need wisdom in our culture today. You get that. But you could be the most well-intentioned person on the planet. And if you don't have wisdom, your great intentions just might turn out to be well-intentioned disasters. Let me give you an example. Courage is a great thing. Everybody would say that they want to be courageous. That's good, right? Well, if you don't have wisdom, then courage just means you might crash and burn boldly. Or if you don't have wisdom, then social media means that now you just have a permanent record of something dumb for the entire world to see. Or quick wit without wisdom. I mean, you might be funny. You might be able to say things on the moment that's really witty and catchy, but a quick wit without wisdom, and you might end up hurting people. Or truth without wisdom can feel abrasive. I mean, I was just telling the truth. That's all I do is I just speak the truth. Okay, that's great, but you came off like a massive jerk. Wisdom lets you know what to say, how to say it, and maybe even when to say it. Now, on the other side of the coin, wisdom is incredibly attractive. I'm not talking romantic. Proverbs 4:9 says that wisdom is a beautiful crown on your head. People are not attracted to what you know. They're not. People are attracted to who you mirror. If you are wise, if you mirror wisdom, then you're mirroring the beauty of Jesus. Wisdom is a beautiful crown on your head. You're mirroring the beauty of Jesus. And that's a great thing. That's something that we all want. And it's something that's very much needed today, not just in our context in Northern Colorado, not just in the US, but across the board. Man, your friend is not gonna come to you just because you know some stuff. Like your friend doesn't care that you know the chronological order of the kings of Israel in the Old Testament. Like nobody cares about that. But your friend is gonna come to you when their marriage is on the rocks, not because of the stuff you know. Your friend's gonna come to you when their marriage is on the rocks because you mirror the beauty and wisdom of Jesus. Like knowledge is a great thing. It's a great thing and we should pursue it. Man, I love reading. I read books all the time. I love to learn. Man, knowledge is a great thing. And it's also a component of wisdom. But today, people in our world are not starving for knowledge. They're not. Like you and I have more knowledge and more access to knowledge than any other generation in history. Today, people are starving for wisdom. We're in this series right now called The Law of Returns, which we're really focusing on spiritual formation. And spiritual formation is the process where Jesus is forming his life in you. It's the process where you're being shaped more and more to look like Jesus. And man, I want that. I want that for you. And if you and I are going to be shaped into the image of Jesus, if we're going to look more and more like him, then wisdom is absolutely a part of that. Now, the law of returns has two parts. The first part is every cause has an effect. Every cause has an effect. And we know this is true in the physical world. If you were here last week, I said, hey, if you go home today and you punch a steel beam, that's the cause. The effect is going to be your hand's going to be broken and you're going to have a crazy ER bill. So don't do that. There's a cause for every cause has an effect in the physical world. The same is true for us spiritually. The second part of the law of returns is that whatever it is that we do, the actions that we commit, whether it's some things we say or stuff that we think about, that was last week, stuff that we do, every effect is often disproportionately bigger than the cause. Meaning over time, whatever it is that we do can have this amplifying effect where it ends up producing effects that we wouldn't have thought of or maybe could have even imagined, much bigger. Think compound interest or think a little acorn, a small little acorn. You plant that into the ground. Over time, over years, an acorn turns into this massive oak tree, right? Started with something small that was planted, and over time it grew into something so much bigger than that, exponentially bigger. That's the law of returns. It's exactly what it is. Galatians 6:7 would describe the law of returns this way. It says, whatever one sows, that he will also reap. So you reap what you sow. That's the law of returns. Whether it's good or bad, positive or negative, you're gonna reap whatever it is that you sow, which means the law of returns, when it comes to wisdom, it makes wisdom even more important, doesn't it? It's even more valuable to be wise so that you know what to sow and when to sow and what not to sow, when not to sow. Man, the law of returns makes wisdom critical for us. So because of that, let me ask you two seemingly obvious questions. Number one, what actually is wisdom? And number two, why should you and I even care about it? The dictionary defines it as the quality of having good experience, knowledge, and good judgment. And that's a good definition. Wisdom is the quality of having good experience, knowledge, and good judgment. But I think it's actually more than that. Because what wisdom will do is it will complement great attributes. Wisdom will actually enhance good attributes that you have. You know, if you're courageous, wisdom will help you use that courage even better. So you don't crash and burn boldly. It'll tell you when to use your courage, when not to, when to be bold, when not to be bold. Wisdom helps with that. Wisdom helps the truth become a little bit more gracious and timely. You're gonna know what to say, how to say it, when not to say anything. Wisdom lets a quick wit be used for something that builds other people up, something that's encouraging, not just sarcasm and not just something that will end up hurting people, because here's what wisdom ultimately is. It's how you live skillfully, moment by moment, in whatever situation you find yourself in. That's what wisdom really is. It's how you live skillfully every single moment, no matter where you're at or whatever kind of situation that you're in. And that's gonna use your intelligence and your knowledge and good judgment and experience and emotions, the mind, the heart. It's gonna use all of that so that you can live skillfully. Wisdom is about you skillfully caring for your spouse. It's about skillfully raising kids. It's how you skillfully run a business or be an employee or handle money or be a friend or knowing what to say, when to say it, and when not to say something. It's about leadership and handling criticism and taking instruction. Wisdom is all of those things and more. It's what's needed moment by moment, day by day, so that you don't just crash and burn, but so you can maximize the life and purpose that you've been given, so that you can mirror Jesus well. Someone who's wise is someone who mirrors Jesus well. They've been spiritually formed that way. Someone who's wise reflects Jesus. Someone who's a fool doesn't. So where are we at right now? I mean, not only do I want this for me, and some of you have asked how you can pray for me before, and you're always going to hear the same response. One of the things I ask for, hey, pray for wisdom. I want wisdom on how to love and prop up and serve Kelly. I want wisdom on how to be a dad in a culture that's getting flipped upside down for our kids. Man, that got to navigate so many more things than I ever had to navigate. I want wisdom on how to be your pastor and how to lead well here and how to steward the direction I believe God is taking us. I want wisdom on how to live well and mirror Jesus in an increasingly post-Christian culture. I want wisdom to live in a divided political time where I can have my own convictions without those convictions ever getting in front of or being more important than the gospel. Like, I want wisdom on how to be a man in a world that desperately needs godly men to stand up and be men. Like, I want wisdom to live and lead well and skillfully, how to mirror Jesus well, and I want that for you too. I want that for our church. Proverbs 3:13 says this, joyful is the person who finds wisdom. That sounds cool. The one who gains understanding, for wisdom is more profitable than silver, and her wages are better than gold. It's a big statement. Wisdom is more precious than rubies. Nothing you can desire can compare with her. She offers you long life in her right hand. Without wisdom, a shark will bite off your right hand. She offers you, that's not in the text. She offers you long life in her right hand and riches and honor in her left. She will guide you down delightful paths. All her ways are satisfying. Wisdom is a tree of life to those who embrace her. Happy are those who hold her tightly. And that's just scratching the surface. It's just scratching the surface on the what and the why for wisdom. And we'd be all on the same page, I think. All of us would say, yeah, 2 thumbs up for wisdom. That's cool, I want that. We're all good on the what and the why. My question is, what about the who? What about the who? Because no one left to themselves arrives at wisdom. That will never happen. Wisdom doesn't happen in isolation. So remember this, who you run with will shape who you are. Who you run with will shape who you are. So depending on who you're with, that's either gonna form wisdom in you or foolishness in you. And the same thing is true for me. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise. Okay, cool. But associate with fools and experience trouble. I love how Eugene Peterson says this verse. He was a pastor and a professor. He says, if you wanna become wise, walk with the wise. Hang out with fools and watch your life fall into pieces. Just think about that for a second. And you know that's true. You've seen it happen before. Who you run with shapes who you are. Now, every single one of us would say, yeah, cool, wisdom, I want wisdom, let's be wise. Everybody says that. Nobody says, I want to see my life fall to pieces. Nobody says that. We all say we want to be wise, but depending on who you run with, depending on who you hang out with, will show what you really want. Who you associate with will show you who you really want to be. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you're gonna hang out with other entrepreneurs, right? You're gonna learn from them. If you wanna be a great football player, you're gonna hang out with good football players. If you wanna be a great parent, you're gonna spend time with people that are intentional and they've done great jobs with their kids. No parent's perfect, but you wanna learn from great parents. If you wanna be a fool, you're gonna hang out with fools. And if you wanna be wise, you're gonna get yourself around people that are wise. So you can watch them, so you can learn from them, so you can be shaped by them. A mentor of mine gave me great advice around this. He said, Matt, never be the smartest person in the room. Never be the smartest person in the room. And if you think about that, that's contradictory to the world's narrative. I mean, the world's wisdom would tell you, no, you need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to be the most gifted, you need to be the most talented, you need to be the most accomplished, the most experienced. Be the smartest person in the room because that's how you're gonna get an edge. That's how you'll get ahead. That's what will set you apart. That's what will make you different if you're the smartest person in the room. My mentor said, no, don't listen to that at all. And I think he's got a lot of credibility to say that. He's got his PhD, he's got an MDiv, he's an author of a few different books, and then later in life, he decided to go back to school, get his MD, and become an anesthesiologist because I guess he got bored. Like, who does that? Like, I feel bad about myself every time I'm around him, right? Like, just wow. And he's incredibly humble about it. He would never tell you any of that. In fact, if I said his name right now, he'd get mad at me for saying his name. This guy loves Jesus. He's incredibly intelligent. Taking intelligence and wisdom and putting them together, he's the definition for that. He's one of the wisest people I've ever been around. That's why I've spent time with him. And he said, don't ever be the smartest person in the room. Because Matt, you'll become better if you're with and around people that are smarter and wiser than you are. That's great advice. That's great counsel. I want that kind of wisdom. Like, I want to be able to pass that wisdom on to other people that I'm with. I'm buying the truth that Proverbs 13 is laying out. Walk with the wise and become wise. And at the same time, the opposite has to be true also. If you're hanging out with fools, you're just asking to become one yourself. You just are. You spend time, you associate, you run with fools. Not only are you going to experience trouble, eventually your life is going to fall to pieces and you're going to watch it. Or you're going to wake up one day and look and like, oh, my life is in pieces. How did this happen? Now, let me say what this is not. This does not mean you separate yourself and you isolate yourself from the world. That's not what this means at all. Not at all. You're going to come in contact with people that you don't want to be like. You're going to come in contact with people that aren't wise. And that's just a nice way of saying it. You're going to come in contact because this world is filled with different people that are fools. There are wise people in our world. There are fools in this world. You cannot take yourself out of the game. You cannot isolate yourself. We're not called to do that. We're supposed to be right in the middle of the world so that people can see Jesus in us. Jesus said, you're the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. Let your light shine so that people can give glory to not you, but give glory to God. We're supposed to be right in the middle of it without becoming it. So this means we got to be really intentional about who we hang with, who we're running with, who we allow into our circles. And it also means we've got to be really intentional about what kind of boundaries we set up for the people that we don't have a choice with. You know, your family, let's just think about this. Maybe your family has people in it that you don't want to be like. Maybe they have lives that are falling apart. Well, they're still your family. So you got to figure out what those boundaries need to be so that you can be Jesus to them without becoming them. But where you have much more say in this and where the law of returns really kicks in, it's who are your friends. Your friends are one of the most powerful things in your life that will shape you. Not can, your friends will shape you. In fact, I'd say it like this. Show me who your friends are, and I'll show you who you'll be in 5 years. Because who you run with will shape who you are. Do your friends make you better? Do your friends make you wiser? Do they sharpen you? Another verse about this in Proverbs 27:17, classic verse, maybe you've heard this before. It says, iron sharpens what? Iron. So one man sharpens another. And we get that, right? We understand the science behind it, that iron does sharpen iron. When you put it together, sparks fly, it sharpens each other. So here's my question then. Let's just assume for a second that you are a piece of iron. Here's my question. If iron sharpens iron, what does a block of wood do to iron? Like if you got a knife, I'm gonna go, some of you are already there. If you got a knife and you take that knife, that blade to a piece of iron, it's gonna sharpen it, right? But if you take that same knife to a block of wood, what's it gonna do? It's gonna dull it. Do your friends sharpen you or do they dull you? I mean, just think about that for a second. The people you run with, the people you hang with, do they sharpen you or do they dull you? And not only think about your friends, but let's just, if you want to get really introspective, think about you for a second. Are you a piece of iron or are you a block of wood? Are you sharpening the people around you or are you making them dull? Do you want to be sharpened and effective or do you want to be dull and breaking down? Like if you and I want to be sharpened, if we want to be wise, if we want to have a life that isn't falling to pieces, but actually is thriving and growing and getting better and being sharpened, then there might be someone or some people that you need to stop running with. I'm not talking about your acquaintances or neighbors or coworkers. I'm talking about your friends, the people that you intentionally and specifically spend time with. There's actually studies now on the brain, on how the brain works with relationships, and our brains are actually wired to have only 5 to 12 real friendships. Like that's what my brain can handle. Now you can know and be friendly with a lot more people that you call friends, but real relationships, real friendships, our brains can handle about 5 to 12 of those. So out of those relationships, there might be someone or some people that you need to stop running with. Maybe that sounds hard, maybe it sounds harsh. Maybe it sounds unfair. And I get it. I've been there. I've had to stop hanging out with some people that I've known for years. They were friends for years, and man, they were not sharpening me. And over time, I got honest with myself and realized that I was actually starting to act like them, not only when I was with them, but when I wasn't with them. And I was starting to make some of the same foolish decisions that they were. And making the decision to not hang out with them or set up boundaries around those relationships felt like I wasn't being loyal. That's hard for me because I'm big on loyalty. Loyalty is just naturally wired into me, into my personality. So that just felt like I was contradicting myself. But here's what I've learned. Here's what I've learned about loyalty. Loyalty is a great thing. It is a great thing. But loyalty doesn't necessarily help you live skillfully. Loyalty should never be picked over wisdom. If you choose loyalty over wisdom, you're just choosing foolishness. That's all it is. If you associate with fools, you'll see trouble. If you hang out with fools, your life will fall to pieces. Well, loyalty's great, but if that's the case, then all you've done is trade for a lawn chair on the top deck of the Titanic. It's not worth it. Man, the law of returns means we've got to be really specific about who we hang out with because there is a cause and effect and there is going to be a return. If you're hanging out with people that are pieces of iron, that are wiser than you, that are humble, that look like Jesus, they're going to sharpen you. You're going to be a better person. You're going to be a better friend. You're going to be a better follower of Christ. You're going to be a better husband or wife or dad or mom. Like you're just going to be better if you're hanging out with those people. The law of returns says that's going to happen. But at the same time, if you're hanging out with people that are fools, you're going to experience trouble. And the effect eventually is going to be a life that's falling to pieces. So choose carefully who you let sharpen you, or maybe who you let dull you. Choose carefully who you let invest in you. Choose carefully who you let shape you. Do your friends, do they point you to Jesus or do they point you away from him? If you want to look like Jesus, run with the people who look like Jesus. If we're talking about spiritual formation, right, that we actually want to look more like Jesus, we want his life formed into us. Wisdom is every bit a part of that, right? Walk with the wise and become wise. Well, if you want to become wise, then you got to walk with Jesus. I mean, that's as simple as we can get it. Here's what I mean. One of my favorite verses in all of the Bible, one of the most encouraging verses I think there is. It's not a well-known verse. It's not inspirational. You're never going to find it on a coffee mug. You might actually really just skim right over it. It's easy to do. But man, there's so many times where I've questioned myself. And I'm just discouraged about something, or I'm wondering, man, am I a fool? Am I a piece of wood right now? Am I being sharpened? Am I going the right direction? Man, I start doubting myself. This verse always encourages me. It's in Acts chapter 4, and here's what's going on. This is right after the resurrection and right after Pentecost. So people are giving their lives to Jesus like crazy. The church is exploding. It's growing by the thousands on a daily basis. The gospel is spreading like wildfire, and Peter and John are right in the middle of all of it. They're two of the front leaders of the church. Peter just gets done preaching one of the best messages in the history of mankind in Acts chapter 2. Now they're out speaking again, and there are some of the powers that be, they're not fans of this. They don't like this at all. They're not buying into Jesus. This whole church, they called it the Way at that time. Well, that's why we call John the Way. They're not into this at all. Number one, it's because it's challenging their belief system. Number two, it's threatening their power. So what they do is they go and have Peter and John arrested. And they're going to interrogate him the next day. And when they bring them in front of him, they're going to interrogate him. And the purpose is to get him to shut up through intimidation and threats. You got to be done talking about this Jesus. This whole gospel thing, this whole good news message, we got to be done with this. So they wanted to intimidate him. They wanted to threaten them. And they thought, you know what? We're just going to tear their message apart. Like, we're gonna expose it. We're gonna show all the contradictions to this Jesus. We're gonna just show the weaknesses in their message. It's just gonna fall apart. These idiots can't hang with us. We're gonna run circles around them. We're the social, intellectual, and religious elite. We're gonna destroy them. So the next day when they start interrogating Peter and John, it doesn't go how they planned. Peter just drops the mic. Like, the dude just lays out the gospel as clearly as he can. He starts pointing out specific Old Testament scriptures that clearly pointed to Jesus, but these religious authorities completely missed it, and he doesn't back down from it at all. Like, he's just throwing down. Then in Acts chapter 4, verse 13, this is what it says. Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and perceived that they were uneducated common men, they were astonished. Peter and John didn't have decades of elite education like these guys did. Peter and John didn't have the decades of apprenticeship and experience. They didn't have the intellectual gifts that these guys did. They certainly didn't have the wisdom. These guys are fishermen. In that culture, that was as common as you could get. They're not educated. They don't have any kind of special gifts. Like, what's going on here? And then it hit them. These religious leaders, the authorities, they realized, okay, what's different about these guys? It hit them. It says, the next part of verse 13, this is the part I was talking about. It says, and then they recognized that they had been with Jesus. These religious leaders, the authorities, the elite, they recognized that Peter and John had been with Jesus. That's what set them apart. That's what made them different. That's what allowed them to run circles around these guys. The reason why Peter and John had so much understanding, they spoke with such wisdom, they had so much boldness, is simply because they had been with Jesus. Man, that's so encouraging to me. It didn't have anything to do with gifts. It didn't have anything to do with programs. It didn't have anything to do with pedigree. It didn't have anything to do with education. It simply had to do with these guys had been with Jesus. So for you, it doesn't matter what your story is. It doesn't matter if you've made mistakes, and we all have. It doesn't matter if you're not incredibly talented or gifted. It doesn't matter if you're not brilliant. It doesn't matter if you are. It doesn't matter if you're incredibly experienced or you have this great education or you have this great pedigree. None of that matters. What actually matters, what sets you apart, what makes you different is if you've been with Jesus or not. That's it. So when it comes to the law of returns, if you're walking with Jesus, wisdom is going to be off the charts for you because Jesus is the embodiment of wisdom. Walk with the wise and become wise. If you want to become wise, you walk with Jesus. It's that simple. It's as ironclad as 2 + 2. Walk with Jesus and you will become wise. That's promised throughout Proverbs. That's promised throughout Scripture. Peter and John in Acts 4, it's just another example of that being true. And at the same time, we got to check who we're really running with. And in the law of returns, we're going to reap what we sow when it comes to relationships. Start first with your relationship with Jesus. That starts in the Word. That starts with His Bible. Man, if you don't have a Bible, stop by New here afterwards. We'll give you one for free. And if you don't know how to read it, if you've never been a part of it, man, let us know. We'll help you. It's intimidating at first. It is. But man, God's Word, this is an analogy that works for me. It just makes sense to me. If it doesn't for you, I'm sorry. But look at it like an onion. And you just keep peeling layer after layer after layer after layer, and it gets richer and richer. Well, an onion doesn't get richer. This is where the analogy breaks down. It just gets richer and richer and richer. And every time I read the Word, there's passages that I've read, I'm not kidding, 100 times. I'll read it for the 101st time and something new nails me. It's because it's alive, it's active, it's God speaking to you. And if you don't have a Bible, let's start there. Man, we'll give you one. We'll help you do this. If you want to be wise, you got to start with Jesus. That's who you got to run with first. Second, this is a reason to be connected here. Get connected into a group. Man, go to our groups page on the website, stop by New Here. You can see all the groups, where they meet, when they meet, who's the leader. All the ones that are open, you can get into a group. A group is just simply men and women or couples that are trying to walk with Jesus. You're trying to walk with the people that are walking with Jesus, you're going to get sharpened. People that are trying to be pieces of iron. Get in a group. Get on a serving team here. No matter what role you have on a serving team here, you're just trying to glorify Jesus. You're trying to act like Jesus. Philippians 2 said Jesus came to serve, not be served. You're trying to live like He is. You're going to look more and more like Him. You're going to be sharp and you're going to look more like Christ. That's wisdom. It's spiritual formation. Be here every week. Bring people with you. And then all of this every Sunday morning, this is us getting together as a group of people who are saying, hey, he's the King of Kings. This is my God, this is my Savior, this is Jesus. We're here to worship him. We're here to run together in this race and sharpen each other. I mean, I think this is also this is another way we can see this whole region tipped. Malcolm Gladwell talks about tipping points. Man, wisdom is attractive, right? There's so much foolishness in the world today. There's so many lies. Having the wisdom to discern what's true and what's not and which way to go, this is attractive to people right now. This is one of the things that will set us apart. People might not believe what we believe. They might not stand where we stand on issues, but that's okay. But they're gonna be drawn to us when they see our wisdom because that can help them. And when you take wisdom that comes only from God and you couple that with grace and with truth, look out. And we'll be a force. Jesus changed the world with 12 dudes that were just fishermen. Uneducated people that were as common as they could get back then. People that have just been written off. Jesus changed it with 12 people. We have a few thousand that call LifeBridge home. People that love Jesus, that are wise, that are gifted. We have a lot more education here than these guys did too. If he can do it with 12, what if a few thousand use our wisdom to bless other people and see the gospel spread all over northern Colorado? I mean, there's no telling what could happen. If you want to be wise, you got to walk with the wise. That starts with Jesus. If you want to continue to get more and more wisdom, if you want to continue to be sharpened so that your life and the purpose that Jesus has given you is not only maximized, but impactful, then you got to run with people who are running with Jesus. Let me pray for you. Jesus, thank you so much that you would give us this gift. God, your word says that through wisdom, you formed the foundations of the earth, that through your wisdom, you told the oceans where they could go and where they couldn't. You've created all of us in your wisdom, and then you've given us your wisdom if we would just take it, if we would just walk with you. I pray that we would be a church full of your wisdom, wisdom that's beyond our years, beyond our experience, beyond our gifting, beyond our education, that's so obvious that it's not from us, that people around us would recognize that we had been with Jesus and that's where it came from. Let that be true of our families, in our marriages, with our kids, with our friends, with our classmates, in our jobs, that we would be a people of wisdom. And through that, people would see the light of the world and they would give glory to you. Bless us in that way. In Jesus' name, amen.